Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and who serve as a force for good in the world. Today, our guest is Dr. Sonza Curtis. Dr. Curtis completed her medical education at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. She also holds a doctorate of naturopathy from Clayton College of Natural Medicine. She is certified in functional medicine. You have all of the credentials, Doctor. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, and welcome for having me, Steve.
Okay, wonderful. Now, many of my viewers will want to know who you are. You know, many of them see doctors as someone foreign who just dropped from the sky. So I would like to know something about your background. How did you get into medicine? So can you take us back and when you made this decision that you wanted to pursue medicine?
Okay. Well, starting all the way back, thanks to my grandmother, we were raised in Arkansas. My parents were from Arkansas, Little Rock, but my grandmother started from an early age, starting to instill those principles of natural medicine. And it wasn't until years later did I even pursue that. So first, I was a divorced mother of two, a single parent, and I went back to school, finished up my prerequisite for a physician assistant, and I started practicing for about a decade, and I just got tired of giving a pill for every ill.
Yeah.
So I went back and got my naturopathic degree and came full circle. And my grandmother was hilarious, and we always laughed. You know, we had a great time, but don't let one of us laugh. Don't let one of us cough. Because she would give us one of those remedies that was passed down from her grandmother.
Uh-huh.
And some of them were totally, utterly disgusting. My
Mm.
grandmother, Sadie, had a remedy for everything. So I kind of went back, came full circle, and I went back to that. And it wasn't until then I began to understand the science behind, which I thought was hogwash back in those days. And and I wish I would have sit down and gleaned from her a little bit more before she passed on. But that's how I got into medicine. And then my daughter, my into the natural medicine. And then my daughter had an autoimmune disorder. And while she was pregnant, we couldn't figure out what was going on with her. So I took matters into my own hand and found out she had an autoimmune disorder.
Mhm.
So I began to apply some of those principles and those remedies from my grandmother, and her symptoms went away. And it was then that I decided that that was what I'm going to focus on. For one, helping people that was disgruntled with the medical system and they weren't getting anywhere. And then the other to help women to kind of just identify, and not only women, women and men, that all labs that you get when you go to the doctor, you know, they're not complete. And so when we did that, we were able to really get to the root cause and find out what was going on with her. And then by just applying simple lifestyle modification, and because we couldn't do anything else,
Right.
then we cleaned up her gut, and she's well. And now I have a booming practice helping other people.
That's fantastic. I want to delve deeper into your grandmother because I'm really touched by this because I remember as a kid growing up in South Carolina, my mother used to talk about what she called sassafras tea or castor oil and camphor and other things like that. So, what kinds of things, if you recall, that you heard your grandmother talk about in terms of natural healing?
Well, the same thing, cod liver oil. My grandmother would always give us a hot toddy, and I remember her having a whiskey bottle full of roots,
Mm.
tree bark and roots, and I didn't know what was in there, but she would take that, and now I know it was a tincture, and she would put alcohol on there and keep it in a hidden area because the light would kind of denature things, and she would give us a tablespoon, when you were ill, and you would go to bed and you would sweat.
Mm.
And she would make a tea out of it. And you would go to bed and you would just sweat. And when you woke up, whatever you had, gone. She just had all these crazy remedies. And I can remember as acne, this is hilarious. When I had acne, my sister was like my cousin actually was a baby, and she said, take that diaper with the baby urine and wipe your face. I was like, no way. But that would get rid of the, she would tell you to take your own urine and put it in your ear. Uh, and then interesting, they did cow chip tea. Thank God I wasn't a partaker of that. My mom would tell me they did cow chip tea, and that's where basically was cow dung. And they would make uh, a tea out of it, and you would drink it. And interesting, now they do fecal transplant. It's almost the same type of principle where it changes your microbiome in your gut and
Wow.
it boosts your immunity. Who would have thought
Who
back
would,
then?
who would
Yeah.
have thought, right?
Yeah. Who
Okay.
would have thunk it back then?
Yeah. So, once again, just want to get a handle on what we're talking about. You once said that you combine your allopathic training with your naturopathic education. And I just want our viewers to get a feel for what's allopathic medicine and what's naturopathic medicine, and how do you bridge the gap between the two?
Well, allopathic medicine is when you just go to the regular doctor, your MD, your PA, or all your other uh, people that have gone to the traditional 4-year medical school. And there we learn how to give you meds. That's all we don't really learn lifestyle. We learn the physiology of the body, which is phenomenal. But we don't really know how to take care of the body other than when it comes to drugs.
Yeah.
So the naturopathic is you look at the whole person. You look at the mind, the body, and the spirit. So a lot of times I tell people it's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. Stress really affects and starts to break down just your cells alone, and what you eat. It's interesting because sugar within itself, granulated sugar, paralyzes your white blood cell count for about 4 to 5 hours.
Wow.
So they don't work as well. And that's interesting, especially in this time. Everybody is all about the immune system, building up, keeping your immune system. So Hippocrates once said, let thy food be thy medicine. And I take it a little bit further and say, or it can be your poison.
Mm.
Because what you eat plays a big role.
Yeah.
If you eat out of a bag in a box, you're going to go to a bag in a box a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about eating homegrown food. And so that was also one of the things about natural medicine. My grandparents, they grew their own food, they raised their own livestock. In the 70s, what hit? Industrialization.
Yeah.
Now you can remember the Wonder Bread.
Yeah, sure
And
did.
when it came out, if you had made a sandwich with that and it sat on the counter in the bread box that we had, those wooden bread box, if you didn't eat that bread within a couple of days, it was moldy. And
That's
we
right.
had to put it in the freezer. And that was the worst bread to make a sandwich when it came out the freezer. But now you could put a loaf of bread on the counter for months and it's still soft.
Yeah.
That's all the genetic modified, all the chemicals. And I always tell my patients, it's like if you have to take a hooked on phonics course, read the labels on your food of the ingredients in your food. That is not food, that's chemical,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know exactly what you mean there. And you're right. I mean, what you said is just brilliant. You were tired of giving a pill for every ill. And when we go to the doctor today, we're looking for that prescription, there's a first choice. I mean, I can understand doing prescriptions, but as a first choice. So, and allopathic, a functional medicine is described as what again? When you look at the whole person?
Yeah, it's a system approach. So you're looking at the whole entire person. You're looking at, okay, you're not looking at, usually high blood pressure is considered a disease, but really high blood pressure is a manifestation of dysfunction of your vessels in your cart. So if you have a pipe or a water hose, right?
Mhm.
And the water hose has that full pressure, it's going to flow.
Yeah.
But if you have a kink in there,
Yeah.
it's going to affect the flow of the water. So it's not the flow that's problem is causing your high blood pressure to go up. It's what's going on here, all the vascular. So then we're looking at the sodium and the salt are just eroding that vascular system. All the food that we're doing in the fats are blocking it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is really what it is. It's just a manifestation of what we call endothelium dysfunction, which is just vascular issues.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Okay. And you once also noted that your experience in Germany furthered your education in natural remedies. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
well, my dad was in the military, so we moved everywhere. So, and that's what was fun going to my grandmother's because we would go to the country and we thought that was fun. But when I went to Germany, the third time I went to Germany, I was an adult, a young adult, and I had a chance to work on the German economy. And it was totally different. When I went to the German doctor gave homeopathy
Oh.
and they gave and that's what they treated you with. And you can buy it at the apothecary, not the pharmacy. So all the stuff was natural. And that's when it really was like, I started realize that that's when I really wanted to go into medicine. And that was my aha moment that kind of just put the nail in the coffin. Like, yes, that is confirmation.
You just reminded me of something that dates back to when I was before I was 15 years of age. There was a doctor in a small town from where I grew up, and he was a homeopath, I believe it was. But he was regarded as, he was not regarded highly in the medical community. Why is that? Why is these people who are alternative doctors just not given the same type of prestige as traditional doctors? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's only that person, but maybe it's not across the board.
Well, interesting. It's a trillion, supplements and all that. It's a $1 trillion industry, and people are now wanting it. So functional medicine and different people are starting to regular discipline of medicine are starting to make that turn.
Mm-hmm.
But to really answer your question, it's you follow the money.
Ah.
Okay. Pharmaceutical companies, again, you're taught in the beginning, to write a prescription, how to write a prescription, when to write a prescription, all of that. So, and don't get me wrong, I have high blood pressure. I'm on blood pressure medicine, but I believe that's what I love to do because it's a balance. I know instead of taking another blood pressure pill, I need to go back and work on my diet or work on my nutrition and then work on my exercise, work on my stress and those type of things, and not to give another pill, because that's the other thing. When you're taking these prescription medication, they deplete your body of your natural nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
So when they deplete your natural nutrients, for instance, my blood pressure medicine depletes me of magnesium. You need magnesium for over 325 processes of the body. That's including cardiovascular and muscle. So now you're depleting that, and then they give you another medicine depletes that, another medicine depletes that. When really, if you took magnesium, there is a possibility that you don't have to take anything else.
Yeah.
Because it was depleting that. So it's not following. One is ignorance. We really just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because how many times you go to the doctor and you tell them, I'm taking this herb. I don't know anything about that. Stop it.
Exactly. I've had that
Okay.
experience, by the way. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of it, you're just not taught. So you can't really fault your doctor. And I tell people I've been on both sides. You really can't fault them because that's not what they're taught.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times my patients educate me as well as I educate them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got to some of the things that I do and how I prescribe or how I give certain supplements, because they'll say, oh, I'm taking this. I'm like, okay, well, let me check this out. So we all think that we have arrived when we come to medicine, and some people do have that big head and they think but that's not true. We are all constantly learning day in, day out. There's new research studies and everything else. So I'm hopeful that the medical community will start to come around, like some things like some of the things that are the treated fish oil now comes in a prescription for treating high triglycerides.
Mm-hmm.
Well, naturopathic medicine, we've been knowing that for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
they're starting to come around little by little.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm healing you, then you're doing well care, not sick care.
Right.
Okay.
That sounds good. I love that. I love that a lot. And from what you're saying, though, I love what seems to be, and I've studied your website and everything, this partnership that you create between yourself as the physician and your patient, the person with the body, to try to get them well. Can you tell us, more about how you do that, how you work with patients, and what questions do you ask, and do you listen to them?
I do, because Steve, you've been with your body for all your life.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down with you for maybe 2 hours, longer than most of other traditional doctors, but I'm not going to learn everything that there is to know about you. So I pick the most important parts. So I do what we call a functional medicine timeline. So we even look at preconception,
Hmm.
because they're looking at now even traumas and preconception traumas can stay and get into the somatization into your tissue in your immune system, and they can affect that. So we start with preconception, even asking how you were born. Were you born vaginally? Were you born cesarean? Because we get our mitochondria and we get our gut, we inoculate our gut flora when we go through the birth. Were born C-section, you were born into a sterile environment. Well, that in itself is going to change the way your body is going to react later on down the line. So in this timeline, we look at every kind of decade of life, like what happened. We look at what's going on in the mental, the spiritual, as well as the body and the physical aspect of things.
Mhm.
And then we put all that together, and then we go back with the patient, and that's when it's almost like, remember we had those things back in the day where you look at everything and it's just a bunch of dots on a piece of paper, and it's like 1 2 3, all these numbers, and you connect the numbers and connect the dots. So that's what that timeline does. It
Wow.
helps us connect the dots, and then we step back, and now we can see the big picture. Now we can see probably the death of your grandmother was the trigger or the stress that triggered your autoimmune disorder. Not that it wasn't brewing all along. So disease starts from 0 to 10, but we don't see it manifest till it gets about above 5. But in the timeline, we can see where, oh, you took a lot of antibiotics here, or you had mono here. These things might have been like in the background.
Yeah.
And then when you see it manifested and you have a catastrophic or stressful event or even an illness, bam, that starts it. Just like now, the long haulers. Some of these things are bringing out things that people, your weakness areas. So that's kind of what we look at. And then we focus on how can we, if possible, reverse some of these things. Inflammation can be reversed by cleaning up the gut.
Yeah.
And then what can we do to kind of eradicate some of these things, because now they're looking at the gut as being the second brain.
Mhm.
So when you look at certain bacteria in the gut and when you identify those have a direct correlation with some disease entities. So if your disease entity has not shown up and you have this, you know, bug here, we get rid of the bug, there's a possibility that we can prolong that manifestation, or even not eradicate it, as long as you do what it takes. And that's why I say you partner with you, because you know your body,
Mhm.
you know your triggers, you know those things. And I always tell you, I help you identify those. I help teach people how to tap into their innate ability for the body to heal itself. Our bodies are constantly speaking, but Steve, do we listen?
Right. Oh, I love the
Do
way
we
you
listen?
express that. That's right. I just love the way you express that. The spiritual, not the physical, the emotional, all of these things got to work together. But when you look at the body, if I've cut myself from time to time, and I don't know how it happens, but if I cut myself, if it's not too big, whereby it needs to be stitched up, it really heals itself. So that tells me that there's intelligence in the body, and the good doctor like yourself puts the body in a situation so that the body can recover. Is that about the kind of thing that you try to do?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
And
So,
inflammation, everybody gets inflammation isn't bad. When you get a fever, that's telling you danger, a cell danger response. When you cut it, That's why it gets red and hot, because it tries to keep it isolated so it doesn't spread and destroy the rest of your body.
Yeah.
So to heal itself.
Yeah, and the body tells you, because I've insulted my body with food, like Thanksgiving. In my culture, it's like, eat it. And I knew that I had insulted my body because it felt bad. I felt
Mhm.
bloated. I felt heavy. It's like my body is fighting this stuff, but, and trying to throw it off, I suppose. But so that's what happens to us. So I also want to talk about food. And you probably have already said it, Dr. Curtis, that food is medicine. Um, are there chemical properties in some of and I know today's a little tricky because of the way food is produced, but are there medicinal properties in certain vegetables?
Oh yes, I
Help
mean
us.
you have some of the nutrients in there. You're getting your nutrients, your B12, your iron. Everybody thinks, or your vitamin D. Everything's have to get it from milk, but no, you can get it from spinach and all those other things. We need those things in our for our body to work. So how do we convert? We eat. Our stomach converts that food into a substance that we can now convert in, and now we can get our daily allowance of nutrients from that food. That's our recommended daily allowances, and we get that through that. But you have to have proper digestion,
Mhm.
because you can eat all the right food. That's another thing. People come in, I'm eating this, I'm eating this, I'm doing this, but you have a digestion issue, so you can't break it down to get it everything you need, right?
Right.
So that's one way. But yeah, food is key when you have the right quality of food.
Mhm.
And this is what I always tell people. And everybody wants to get stuck on the calorie, when we get a certain age,
Yeah.
we start getting the bulge. And most people, what do? You cut the amount of food that you're eating, and you want to work out more. Well, I have 250 calories of a Snicker, and I
Mhm.
have 250 calories of broccoli. They're the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what happens when you get that, right? Like you said, if you eat that 250 calories of the Snicker, your body's going to get that immediately blood sugar rush. You're going to feel good for a minute, and then you'll crash.
Wow.
Where this broccoli is going to sustain you. Now, you may be gassy because you eat all that broccoli, but it's going to sustain you, and it's going to give you a more nutrient dense meal. So
Mhm.
that's what I don't get caught up on vegetarian. I don't get caught up on pescatarian. I
Mhm.
don't get caught up on that, because your body requires something different than my body requires. I don't know what that is. So we try to dive into that to kind of figure out, what does Steve body need?
Yeah.
Not what does your migraine or your hypertension needs, or this, what does Steve body needs? And that may be different from your twin brother.
Yeah.
You have one, you know what I'm saying? So it's
Sure.
totally different.
That sounds like great doctoring to me. So, in my preparation here for this interview, I've read that some foods can slow the progression of a disease, and some foods can also help the body reverse disease. Do you go that far in your examination of the role of diet in our health or wellness?
Yes. Yes. Bergamot, citrus bergamot helps reverse diabetes. And you can buy it, you can drink it in a tea. And they actually you can purchase it. Um, so there's different things that bitter melon is the one, not a citrus, but bitter melon. Correct me, I'm sorry. But I bought it from the farmer's market. It's bitter.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to cook it. But yes, you get those nutrients, and eating the right food, reading the right combination really can help a person reverse, like the DASH diet, where you
Mhm.
don't have not having so much salt,
Yeah.
sometimes fasting. And, we get onto that. But, the Bible, you give your body a rest where you're not fasting, but there's healing properties in
Mhm.
just not eating for a little while.
Yeah, that's great. You're right. It seems like the old doctoring, and I'm not a medical doctor, but it just seems to me that the old doctoring was where the patient put his body in the hands of the doctor, and the doctor medicated that patient in some way. in talking with you, and I'm not even sure if this is a phrase, but it seems like it's reasonable to say that there's a new doctrine where the patient is not only an advocate, but plays a vital role in this process. Do you see it similar to that? If not, help me out.
I definitely see it because the internet and everything is great, but from that can be good or bad.
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer that you should be the CEO of your health, and you should know exactly what everybody's doing. Now, before I did a lot of oncology, and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. So I would always tell my patients, get a big binder, get all your notes, put it in there. So if your doctor said, I don't have my note, okay, here it is. I got a copy. Here it is. I have a copy. Because all those channels sometimes does not um, gel sometime. But it also, I've seen it work in the reverse, where everybody wants to go to medical college of Google
Yeah, that's
and get their
dangerous.
honorary medical degree, and they come to you and they sit down and they tell you, I got this, I want you to do this. And so it becomes, it becomes a dance. That's why I say I partner with people.
Yeah,
And I tell like, yeah, that may be so, that may be that person, you know, program, but I'm focusing on your program.
right.
So you do see that, and I think it should be. And especially as a person of color, there has been numerous of studies that show that we don't get the same um,
Yeah.
treatment. You think that their pain threshold is different. I remember my brother, just as I'm talking nothing years ago, beginning of the year, my brother got bit by a brown recluse spider, and he was in Omaha, Nebraska, where I went to school. His leg had a lesion, I kid you not, about that big.
Mm.
And it was open, and he had to go to the wound care 2 times a week. They told him they could not give him pain medication, but they would sit there and scrape it with a blade,
Oh my.
wrap it up, and tell him he had to go to his PCP to get something for pain. Tell him ibuprofen and take that.
Mm.
And knowing he had a kidney issues, high blood pressure, so that wasn't good for either of that. But they
Mm.
didn't care, and they told him it was against the law because he was a big black man. They
Mm.
wouldn't give it to him. But yet somebody sprains their ankle and they'll give you pain medication, but they think that we misuse it.
Yeah.
So you see that more often, where you really have to be an advocate. And my mother died in 2020, and the same school, the same University of Nebraska Medical Center.
Mm.
And when I saw the way they treated her, I was appalled. If
Yeah.
you're older and you're a person of color, you have to have somebody to be your advocate.
Right. Oh, my mother died in 2017, and Dr. Curtis, she had a big tray of pills, and she
Mhm.
would go to a different doctor, and they would switch to pills. It was crazy. So yeah, you got to be an advocate, and you need doctors like you for sure. So I went to your website, 3D Wellness. Can you tell us a little bit about 3D Wellness?
When I was thinking of how to name my business, I had 3 degrees. So that was like, okay, so I had 3 degrees. And then I thought there's 3 degrees of medicine. There's mind, body, and spirit.
Ah,
And that is the principle that I focus on, is 3 degrees of medicine, because you cannot treat one without treating the other.
that's beautiful. I've never heard it expressed that way before. Wow. And just to go back, let me take a look here. You have a full list of conditions that you all treat, thyroiditis, leaky gut, weight management. And then I saw anxiety and depression. And I wondered, whoa, a functional integrative medicine doctor is interested in treat. So tell me about that. I'm just curious because in some demographics, there isn't a lot of conversation about anxiety and depression. Here you say, among the stuff that you treat are or include anxiety and depression. I would love to hear more about that.
Well, the great thing about that is it all starts, they call me the gut doctor because everything starts and ends in the gut with me. Okay. The holistic gut doctor. But the gut is really considered your second brain. So 75 to 80% of your neurotransmitters, you're talking about your serotonin, your dopamine, your epinephrine, your norepinephrine, all these neurochemicals that secrete, that we thought that was in the brain, but they're also stored in the gut. So you have to start with the gut. And so that's there. You have a gut brain axis, and you have 9 pathways from the gut to the brain and 1 pathway from the brain to the gut. You have to keep that pathway open. So even myself, I know there's certain foods, like if I have gluten, gluten is very neurotoxic. So when I say gluten, I'm talking about bread, and I'm talking about pasta, I'm talking about gravies and different things of that nature. Now I do eat gluten-free pasta, but when I eat gluten, I become like intoxicated. I will go to sleep. My joints will hurt. So there's certain population that I would take them off gluten. Their brain fog goes away. Their anxiety gets better. Now you're absorbing the nutrients too once I clean your gut, clean the gut up. So now you're getting your recommended daily allowances of vitamins to support your neurotransmitters. So that's why I love, the whole body approach, because I'm not just looking at your brain. And what is the brain is the only, psychiatry is the only form of medicine that doesn't examine the organ that they're treating. What do they treat you with? They treat you with questionnaires. Once you meet this box, that box, okay, you have depression, schizophrenic, you have that. They don't look at the brain. Now you can get PET scans and you can actually see deficit in the brain. But if you just go to a psychiatrist, they're not going to check your brain out. Go to a cardiologist, going to go to EKG, it's going to look at your heart, listen to your heart.
Yeah. So I got you. And you get one of those diagnoses, it could follow you for a lifetime, and no one really knows what's going on. Had another question real quick from this. Go back to your website, and you also offer a full list of services, and these include preventative health care, BHRT. That caught my attention, especially BHRT. I've never heard of that before. I'm not a doctor, so there's a reason for me to know about that, but I found that interesting. What is that?
That's bioidentical hormone therapy. So as we tend to age, and even I'm seeing it in younger people, you have different things that we call endocrine disruptors. So drinking out of a plastic bottle can cause estrogen deficiency, and even sometimes testosterone, where it just becomes toxins itself can disrupt the whole mechanism of your hormone production. And you may have low in one and higher in the other one. So we have estrogen, men have estrogen, we have testosterone, men have testosterone, we have progesterone, men have progesterone. But based on the XY and the X and the chromosomes, it's a different expression of that. So women are going to have more estrogen, where men are going to have more testosterone. But we still need all of them to work together. So that's what the balance of the bioidentical hormones is the hormones that are going to be most likely coming from a plant or plant base that's closer to your body's identification or mechanism. So like when they're doing the WHO study for the women, when they were giving them hormone therapy and Premarin comes from a horse. So imagine a woman getting hormones from a horse, and you wonder why we were getting breast cancer, because you were doing the bioidentical hormone. But as your hormones wax and wane, then you can see, like, as you get menopause, hot flashes and all that. So they found that beneficial, and also cardiovascular, and even men cardiovascular with testosterone. You need testosterone for muscle mass. So women, as they get older, we lose muscle. So you need testosterone for that if you want to lose weight, and for muscle mass, and for cardiovascular. So we look at the whole thing, and I always tell people you have to earn your hormone therapy with me, because if you're not going to the restroom when I say pooping every day, then you kind of recirculate those hormones and now it can become toxic. So you really have to work with somebody if you're going to do hormone therapy that really knows what they're doing, because you can have more damaging. I had a patient last week that somebody was giving her hormone therapy, but they weren't looking at her ratio and she ended up with a blood clot.
Mhm.
So it's very important to work with somebody that's well versed and really knows their hormone um, therapy.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that in terms of elimination. Start with another naturopathic doctor who described it as, train in, train out.
Hmm.
Sometimes we are not aware of how important it is to eliminate on a daily basis. So I also want to ask you, a friend of mine branded her business, not a medical business, but she said her brand was change is good, smart change is better. So know that you're not examining any patient now, but in terms of patients, about people who are listening or watching, what they could do to improve their health, what are just a few things that you would ask us to consider?
Okay. Well, the biggest thing that I find that's really great is adapting a life of gratitude. If
Wow.
you're alive,
Mhm.
that's easy to do. If you have leg pain, thank God you have a leg. Okay. So I have a exercise that I have my patient do,
Mhm.
and I have them five minutes in the morning, three things that you're grateful for and why. And 5 minutes in the evening, three things that you're grateful for and why. And those three things have to change every 72 hours. Now, gratitude alone, when I started studying the benefits of it, the two things that slapped me upside my head was it increased dopamine, that pleasure part of the brain. So if you're depressed and all that, that helps with that. And it decreases inflammation down to the cellular level.
Wow.
That's just active gratitude. You can do that, right, Steve?
Yes, yes,
Easy,
that's phenomenal.
easy
Yes.
peasy. Yes.
Wow.
The other thing is drinking plenty of water. We have to stay hydrated. And if for every cup of coffee, you should drink half of your body weight in ounces for water. And
Mm.
if you drink coffee, 8 ounces of coffee, you would have to drink 16 ounces of water to replenish that area, because
Mm.
coffee will dehydrate you. Getting plenty of sleep. People come in here and they have checked all the box and they can't sleep. Sleep is how God designed us for our body to heal. Okay. When you sleep, what happens to your brain? Your brain shrinks, goes through the lymphatic system in the brain, kind of washes. And when you wake up, it expands again. So that's the best thing to do in the morning when you wake up. Have a water by your bed. Drink water before you take your shower. 8 ounces of water.
Wow.
Kind of just refresh whole body. Helps with blood pressure. Helps with brain health,
Mm.
and getting that good 8 hours sleep. Getting into that REM sleep.
Mm.
Okay. If you don't sleep, it's interesting. Lack of sleep has the same symptoms as depression.
Ooh.
So sleep is where you want to start. And that's an eating good quality food. Eat local. I mean, buy local. Um, it has the same things in the air. Buy seasonal and eat food and have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't be just so caught up and so tight up. Find something you like to do in life. Some days people come in and they're like, oh my God, I ate the cookie. I said, eat the darn cookie and enjoy it. Just don't eat the whole bag. You
Oh.
know, I'm like, all the stress that you're doing from the cookie, stressing about it, you've done more damage to your body than just if you would have just ate the cookie and
Uh-huh.
enjoyed. So I believe in the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you should be exercising is another one. Movement. I hate the word exercise because you think of everything, but movement, moving your body, whatever you think. Now, the other thing, what do? We're doing what we do now, Steve. We sit behind a computer. I call it Zoom butt. We
Yeah.
have Zoom butt.
Oh,
We sit
that's a good
here,
one.
yeah, and that's all we do. We have our electronics. We don't move. Where back in the day when we were kids, we went outside. We had to be in before the street lights turned on. We played volleyball, we played red light, green light.
Mhm.
These kids now they don't get out and do that. And so what are we seeing now? More and more and more obesity with
Uh,
adults and kids because we don't move. So
mhm.
movement is key. So if you can just do those few things, you will see a difference.
Yeah,
You'll just see a difference like, wow.
yeah. Well, I tell you, you are a cross between the late Maya Angelou. Oh gosh, and the best functional medicine doctor on the planet. It's just amazing what I'm hearing from you, because she would
Well,
say
thank
many of the
you.
things that you've said as well, especially about laugh, and have fun, and so thank you for that. So we can slow the progression of disease, and we may also be able to reverse diseases. Now, I
Correct.
want to ask you this question. Are there untouchables? That is, are there some diseases that are so entrenched? Maybe this is not a fair question. I'll share something in a moment. They're so entrenched that they are not amenable to be reversed. I'm talking about multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, some autoimmune diseases. What do you say? I'm curious.
First of all, I'm a believer and I think there's nothing, it's not over till God say it's over.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
But there's things that you can do to kind of I first of all, let me do this.
mhm,
Autoimmune, there's three phases of autoimmunity. So you still have the autoimmune, but you don't have the manifestation of it. Okay.
mhm.
So you can say cure if you want. My mother had multiple myeloma, a disease that they told her that 6 to a year she would be dead. My mother lived 13 years. She
Wow.
thrived for 13 years with a disease. They said that she would be dead. But what did I do? I gave her stuff to support her system. Now, in psychoneuroimmunology, disease starts in the brain. They've been multiple miraculous healings where people have gone back and what? There's no tumor. Cancer is gone. Crohn's is gone. Have I seen that? I've seen people that had issues that it's gone. And so I don't think that there's nothing that's irreversible. I think it's just how the person really grasps the whole of it and
Mhm.
what they do with it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest thing. And I believe that's an appointment we're all going to make. And I don't believe this anti-aging.
Mhm,
We can age gracefully,
mhm.
we can age with vigorously, but we can't go back. There's no such thing as Benjamin Button,
Right.
nor do I want to go back. You know what I mean?
Uh,
So, but you can age gracefully. I'm almost 60 years old. 2 more years,
uh,
I'll be 60.
uh-huh.
But it's how age,
Yeah.
how you age and what you do with that. And
Mhm.
I can find people that are on point with everything else and mentally and stress that will give them cancer
Yeah.
faster than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. That's so wonderful. Once again, Maya Angelou, I was listening to her on an interview with Oprah recently, and she said when she got into the 60s, she thought, oh, how wonderful. And then she got into the 70s. She said, wow, this is amazing. And then she got into the 80s. She said, if you could do this, do it. So I'm almost 70. And
Well, you look amazing.
I thank you. I'm trying to do my best here to enjoy it. But look, you've inspired me with a number of things that you said today. So where is your clinic? Where is your practice located?
My practice is in Roswell, Georgia, right out of the suburb out of Atlanta. I do some virtual, mainly for in-state patients in Metro Atlanta area or just Georgia. I can practice there. I do not have license in other states. However, I do have patients that fly in. Matter of fact, I have people flying in next week from the Netherlands. So I have international patients as well. So I do offer a 15-minute discovery call to kind of see if it's a fit, because I do believe that one of the biggest part of healing, and I would ask everybody to, when they're doing this, if you don't like your current practitioner,
Mhm.
find one that you like,
Yeah.
because that is the key. It's having that relationship with your provider is the first key to healing. therapeutic language, what we say. I had a patient came in the other day. She said, I suffer from blood pressure. I said, our words are powerful. So you're telling your body that you're that negativity. We have to speak also power to our body.
Yeah.
And we can't just down our body. We will talk to our plants and our animals better than we will talk about our body and what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, rarely do we get a doctor who speaks health into us, as I'm sensing from you. I can feel you. I can feel that this being with you is medicinal, for sure. So, yeah. So, from what I heard, just because I was curious about this, someone who wanted to be evaluated can just come to where you are for an evaluation and maybe see you twice a year, 3 times a year, whatever works for them. And that would
once a year. Yeah, once a year. By
Yeah.
law, legally, I have to lay hands on you once a year. And we have a few hotels around here that you don't have to, accommodations, or there's Airbnbs in the area. But if you come once a year, but I do the initial consultation virtually anyway, and then you just come in, and
Yeah.
that's how I assess my patients. But a lot of it is really lifestyle changes, watching your labs and seeing how you progress.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell you something, Steve. Sometimes I'm amazed at the miraculous healing that I get from patients. I'm like, who'd you see? Oh my God, what you do? And I forgot, because when I'm in the zone, when I'm doing it, I'm treating that person. I'm not treating, this is a protocol for this. I'm into that person and what I vibe and what I feel with that person. And I feel I'm intuitive as well as having the medical side to it, where I can kind of pick up where, no, let's try this.
Yeah. Yeah, that strikes me as just right in what I feel and sense from you, because there's a flow of energy in this world. There's a flow of energy, and there's something flowing from that side of the screen toward me, and we just having this conversation. And when I get out of this chair, I know that I'm going to feel good because I've spent some time with you, and that's for sure. So
My pleasure.
before we close, Dr. Curtis, is there anything else that you care to share with us that that you haven't shared already?
I'm glad to be here, and it's my pleasure. And if I can serve the audience in any form or way, please feel free to contact me. We're doing a lot of things coming out in the new year. We will be doing more Instagram lives. We'll be having monthly Instagram. So if you just want to jump on, and my Instagram is Dr. Dr. Period Sonza, Sonza Curtis. That's my Instagram handle. And we will be
Was
doing
it
tons.
SOS Curtis?
Sonza
Okay.
Curtis.
Okay,
So,
I got it. Dr. Sonza Curtis. Okay.
yeah, and there's a period behind doctor. So, but we'll be doing tons of things, and I'm also launching my gut course because I believe in starting health, and you can do the gut course. DIY. We'll also be having monthly meetings. Going over Q&A, bi-monthly meetings with that course. And I'll have a health coach, and she'll be doing some culinary, because it's interesting, because when you start telling people we're going to rearrange your nutrition. I don't call it diet, because the first 3 letters in diet is what, Steve?
Diet.
Okay. And when you
Oh,
hear diet, you're going to think of a start and a finish. So
yeah.
this is not a start and a finish. This is a lifestyle and a continuum. And this is just a reset. So we do the food exchange, and we help people with that as they're going through that change where, okay, I'm taking this inflammatory food out of my daily nutrition, and I'm replacing it with something less inflammatory or anti-inflammatory, and you feel better. I mean, most people feel better when they do my 30-day gut reset. They're like,
Wow.
oh my God, I feel better just by doing the 30-day gut reset.
Oh,
One thing I want to tell you, I had a patient, I'm gonna leave you with this.
okay.
I had a patient that had alopecia, and her name was Kay. So Kay came to me and she said, Dr. Curtis, can you help me? I said, Kay, how is your gut? And she looked at me, she said, what does my gut got to do with my hair loss? I said, sweetheart, everything. I put her on my 30-day gut reset. She came back about a month later and she said, Dr. Curtis, I feel amazing. And when she first came to the office, she had a scarf on. When she came back the second time, she had no scarf. And the first time she had lesions all in her hair. She came back 3 months later. I examined her. All those were gone. Her hair was starting to grow back. And not only with her hair going back, her confidence came back.
Wow.
6 months later after that, I got a call from Kay. We were doing a follow-up. And she said, Dr. Curtis, my hair, she sent me pictures. Her hair was all full. When I tell you she was bald, Steve, she looked like your head. No pun intended. It was bald and then there were areas, they were just kind of, and so for the woman, the hair is her glory.
Yeah.
And now Kay has changed her whole life. And she was a teacher. Now she's going back as becoming a nutrition because of her experience. And she didn't want to pay the price. That's one thing. We don't take insurance, so people get upset.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if you ask Kay today, she'll tell you that experience was priceless.
Yeah.
She got her hair back, she got her confidence back, and she's changing her whole trajectory of her life by now becoming a nutrition and helping other people.
That's fantastic. Well, Dr. Curtis, I want a gut reset. I'm bringing one other person with me to get a gut reset. We're going to get this thing going all over the country and all over the world. Well, look, it has been my pleasure spending time with you today. I can't explain this energy that I'm feeling, but I'm telling you what, I feel healthy, I feel vibrant in just talking with you today. So with that, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. We bring you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Dr. Sonza Curtis is definitely one of those people. Dr. Curtis, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure.